When you're dragging ass out of bed, the hairs must up on your head. You picture the 20th Maine, and you're happy once again. Fight the battle against being slow with Little Ground Top Bro.
Little Ground Top is addressing Gettysburg's first coffee brand, and we're proud to team up with Bantam Roasters to bring you this medium blend with notes of cacao, wildflowers, and toasted sugar. Get your bag in whole bean or grounded to your coffee-making specifications. Find out for yourself why Bantam Roasters can't keep Little Ground Top on the shelves and is inundated with online orders each week. Go to addressinggettysburg.com/cafe or stop in at Bantam Roasters at 82 Steinware Avenue in Gettysburg. Fight the battle against being slow with Little Ground Top, bro. Did you know that 18 out of 21 phlebotomists agree that listening to Addressing Gettysburg's Patreon shows can help you prepare for the guide exam? If that's not convincing enough, you should hear what 6 out of 6.5 dentists say. It'll blow your mind. So help keep Addressing Gettysburg going and learn a ton, literally a ton, maybe even a metric ton. And is that more? Well, either way, you can learn a lot from the hundreds of episodes we've produced for you over the last 5 years on our Patreon page. Many podcasts have a Patreon account, but only one treats it like a career and gives you something in return every week. And that's ours. So please go to patreon.com/addressinggettysburg to join today. First and second lieutenants get every episode we put out each month and then some. We thank you in advance. And now, on with the show.
Hi, this is Kelly Gormley, author of Cease Firing, Life and Death at the Swope Manor, and you're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
From the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios, you're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Shoot me. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg. This is a special episode of Addressing Gettysburg. It is guide exam year. And it has been 35 years since the last exam, right? Is that correct? And no, it feels like it, but it was, 7 years, I think? Is that right?
No, not even 17. I guess that is 7 years.
Yeah, 7 years. It's 24.
It's how long I've been a guide. It was the last time.
How would I be?
Is that when you got your license?
When I took the test was the last one.
Pull that mic closer to your mouth there, or speak up.
You got to tell me what some of the essay questions were.
All right, so we are talking with Ralph Siegel and Jessie Wheedleton, both licensed battlefield guides extraordinaire. That is their official title. And this is the realities of guiding. So it has come to my attention, it's by Park Service people and by licensed battlefield guides, that there's a lot of confusion and fear and misinformation and rumor and all these other things about guiding and the guide exam and all that other stuff. Now, we're not dealing with the guide exam here. We are dealing with the realities of guiding. You've passed. You have the license. Now, this is what you can expect, okay? So that's it. Now, we're going to do other episodes that are about the guide exam, but this is what we're talking about today. So Ralph.
So now we're speaking to an audience of between 10 and 12. Because that's
Nine.
No, that's about how many people are going to pass the exam.
I see where you're going. I see where you're going.
We need far more guides than that.
Yeah,
now,
we might, but
yeah.
Well, actually, who knows what the model is? The old model used to be they figured out how many guides they needed, and then in the exam they approved for advancement twice that number.
Okay.
Figuring half of them would fail the oral exam. So in my exam year, they ranked 21 of the top scores to advance to the oral test round.
Right.
And 12 of them got licenses.
Okay.
Now, this is back in the Stone Age.
When was that? When did you get yours?
This was when we drove up with Fred Flintstone. We had to use our feet to drive the car
and
up
it made
to hack.
Noise,
yes, we did. And we had Dino and and that's how I felt halfway through the test.
Yeah, I bet.
Oh, they followed you into the bathroom. Did they do that in your test?
No, there's a swimsuit competition. No,
I'm serious. Did you? Well, you might not have had to go to the bathroom, but if you went to the bathroom, they followed you in to make sure you didn't have the names of the Corps commanders written on the inside of the bathroom stall or something, or the Gettysburg Address written on your forearm or something.
Sounds
strange.
easier to get into the CIA.
Well, it probably is.
Yeah,
but then you get arrested and shot, and that hasn't happened to us.
Right. Comes with a whole bunch of headaches.
Now the exam is way different today, because they have that weeding out process. Jessie can talk about that, how you're interviewed.
All right, go. We're not going to go crazy into the guide exam itself, but go ahead. Give us some.
Let's go crazy.
You want to go crazy? All right.
I think the problem is that there have been a couple different iterations of the guide exam, and that, there are ways they chose the people to move on in the past that are not being applied now. Like, it's not a percentage to pass. It's kind of like judging how many people they want to move on, which Angie's going to answer that when you guys.
Right. So I get my license, right? I got my license. There I am. I got the shirt like Ralph, the patch, the badge. I'm all excited. I have my own number.
This is a brand new shirt, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I could tell.
This illegal patch just sewn on.
And what it really is my license? What does it license me to do? According to the letter of the law.
A letter of the law?
Yeah.
To give a comprehensive 2-hour tour of the battlefield and make sure they understand, I don't know, there's like a page
the context
of
the battle in American history.
Yes.
So that's why there's so much about Gettysburg and after Gettysburg on the...
See, now that's interesting to know.
The people should understand how it fits in. Even if it's one sentence at the end of your tour because you got 2 hours to cram it in, you should be reflecting on how Gettysburg relates to the rest of the war.
So now I've never. It's funny because I know that you need to know about pre-battle, right,
mm-hmm.
and the startup, the lead up to the war, and everything like that. But I never heard it said so that you could put it in the context of the war. Now, like I'm sure someone has said it. It never clicked until you just said it.
It's actually written in the guide manual.
It's written that way.
There's a guide manual that they're updating right now. It's in the process of being updated, but we have an old one from 2012. And it specifies the goals and objectives that you should do on a tour that the people should come away with.
Now, who writes the guide manual? Is that the
park service?
Okay.
Yeah. We have nothing to do with it.
So it's not the ALBG or anything.
God, no. I can only imagine what that would look like.
Okay.
But, I probably shouldn't have said that out loud on the air either. Thank you for getting me into massive trouble.
Who cares?
She's a board member, too. I don't know.
Are you, Jess?
Yeah, she is.
So
your question was, what do you have to do? And then you paused.
But
you said by the letter of the law.
By the letter of the law.
All right, so let's move past the letter of the law and go back to the initial half of your question. What do you have to do? Answer anything you want. You're on your own.
Once you have the license.
My late partner, Mike Vallone, said, once you got the shirt, you can do what you want.
All right, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening.
They scared us. They said they would be audited.
Uh-huh.
You didn't get that, did you? Did they say that?
Well, it's really, so we all take the guide exam so we can share this bonding experience of being tortured the same together.
Yes.
And so even though we're independent, we remain united because of that single fact.
Right.
Yeah, you could tell the people who came in the same class because there is like, they become friends and there is sort of this bond between them.
And you're competing against each other, but everybody's helping each other.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get around that. Like, everybody wants to help and see everyone be successful.
We had a little study group. 4 of us who worked together and communicated and traded stuff and met out here every now and then. And I wouldn't have gotten a license without the other guys.
So do you think that is something that not as necessarily necessary, but
I don't like
very helpful?
I don't like to give people exam tips because, as we talked about on our first podcast 8, 10, 12 years ago. When did we start doing this?
I'm trying to remember what that was.
Forever. The gunfight at the Peach Orchard program.
Yeah.
And I pointed out that I thought I had more questions wrong and that the pages stuck together on the test and they didn't score them right. And then Eric said, "Are you sure you should have said that out loud on the air?" And we all started laughing and it occurred to me, that's not a bad point there, Eric. Thank you.
He was the smart one.
Maybe I should not have pointed that out.
Right.
So it's very hard for the Park Service to make a judgment call of how many guides we're going to need, because say you have a certain number, that have died, that have retired. You don't know when someone gets their license what companies they're going to work for. Because so we are required, if you are making money off the battlefield,
when
you're
you say
required
what
to use a
company,
guide.
wait. When
Vendors,
you say what companies,
vendors,
like vendors, like meaning Getty's Bike Tours or the Heritage Center. Or
So some of the guides strictly
Or out of
do
the car
horse
tours.
tours.
Don't get me started on that. All right, go ahead.
But, say they need more guides to work out of the visitor center. You can't force guides to work out of the visitor center. Most of us do, because a lot of tours come through there. It's the only way to get a lot of the 8th grade bus tours. And things like that.
Now you bring up something which I'm pretty sure every guide hopeful knows already. But for anybody who's just curious, a licensed battlefield guide is not an employee of the park, and they are not a park ranger. Those are two very distinct things.
Yes.
And often I hear tourists confuse the two. They use the terms interchangeably. It's a very unique thing that we have here with the licensed battlefield guides. Not everybody has that. I mean, there are...
The closest comparison I made to people was cabbies in New York City.
Okay, there you go.
They're licensed. They get a license. They drive when they want to. Most of them drive in shifts 24 hours a day. They're driving that car because the license medallion costs like $150,000.
Right.
So they're using that car all the time. But they're licensed. They're not city employees.
Right.
But the city can pull the license if they drive through a red light or hit somebody or yell at a cop or do something else wrong.
Right. Same thing here. You can have your license pulled.
Yes.
Yeah.
There used to be, when I first became a guide, there were 2 Ralphs. That made things complicated. I was always counting with my name to be like the only Ralph in the neighborhood. And here there was another Ralph who was a guide, but his tenure ended soon after.
Okay.
Because he was a bad boy.
Uh-oh.
And they sent him packing.
Okay.
And then I had the Ralph domain to myself, which I have now had.
I've never heard of a
decades.
I don't know enough about licenses taken away in the past.
Yeah. I'm not sure it was taken or if it was voluntarily surrendered on threat of imprisonment or something.
Really?
But yeah.
What are some of the things, don't give me specific examples of people who've lost them, but like what are some of the things that can get your license revoked?
You can't drive well enough anymore.
Okay. Oh, that's a good one.
People who want to be a guide until they die.
Yeah. And if you can't drive.
If you get enough complaints.
Right.
There's a line.
Yeah, or enough.
Although you're free, as there are several guides who give a tour without driving.
Oh, are there?
Yeah.
So they just.
I hate it, but and in fact, in 20 years, I've only had one time that I couldn't talk people and let me drive their car.
Okay.
Sometimes it takes a few minutes, but I've only had one instance.
So you don't like being a passenger?
No, because then it takes experience that I don't have. What I can point out.
Yeah.
That I don't want you to look at.
Right.
Everybody else, okay, there's the David Wills house, everybody in the car, but the driver, too late.
Yeah.
And he's just hammered himself around an 18-wheeler who's late for a delivery of groceries in Hanover, whipping through the circle, and he's drifting in because he's looking at the David Wills house.
Yeah.
I'm pointing to it.
I see.
Yeah, see.
I've had people that I've had to convince for safety reasons to let me drive partway through the tour because they're swerving too much when they're trying to look at the things.
Yeah.
He was getting out his map on the steering wheel while I was, sir, you can look at your map in the passenger seat.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So,
okay.
In 20 years, one person at the old visitor center insisted on driving his car. He was a Canadian. Not that I disparage Canadians, but you suck at driving. And his 2 kids. And we had an accident in the parking lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because another thing, along with what Jessie points out, that we know where stuff is and we're not looking at it and drifting, is that we have seen everything.
Right.
We've been driving with these politely phrased Tourons, perfectly good drivers on every public road until they're in the park.
Right.
And now they're driving like they got a bag on their head.
Yeah.
Because they're looking at monuments, they look at this, they look at that. And it's like, your motor vehicle is still moving. You understand that?
Right.
And so we've seen everything. And so you don't drive through the parking lot. If you see lights go on it, you know that guy's backing up without looking because you've seen it 50 times. Mm-hmm. And the guy in the car I was in hadn't seen it 50 times, and the guy backed right into him.
Right.
And then we're spending an hour on the phone with the insurance company while I'm giving the kids a battlefield tour in a parking lot. Only once that happened.
So do you have, you got to be a good driver.
Yeah.
But and it's not
driver.
a rule that you drive, but it's highly recommended that you drive when they'll allow you.
I don't know. What are if you can give a tour without driving, it's very restrictive because you don't want that driver doing anything like all those other drivers are doing.
Right.
You want to pay attention to the bumper of the truck that you're right in front of.
How about buses? I know you now. So your guides are paid on a tiered
passenger count.
Whatever you call it,
passenger count.
Right. So a car full of 3 people is going to be substantially less than a bus.
Half. Well, that's not even less than half, right?
Well, I would call that substantial.
I mean, we could say what the rates are. $70 for a car.
I don't know what the rates are.
$96 for a large car or a van. That's 7 people up. And then buses are 156?
150.
152.
152. Shows you how many buses I do.
Shows you how much I owe Lewis. I owe him $2.
Yeah. But that includes, like, if you're on a walking tour for some reason with a caravan and you have 40 people, that will count as a bus. It's not the vehicle, it's the head count.
Correct. Right. So now, is there? I know a while ago when COVID occurred, they kind of just said, well, all quotas and all other things we'll put aside until whatever.
Yeah.
Is that still the case, or do they bring quotas back?
That's a question for Angie. They haven't finalized our new manual yet, and we don't know if there are going to be minimums in the future.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We're hoping there aren't, but I'm hoping they're not, because 2 categories that a lot of people relied on that had a cap on the quotas was the weekender. I was a weekender guide for 17 years, and if that category hadn't existed, I would not have. That's not true. I was a part-time for the first 8 years, but they gave me a lower quota. But the weekender category, if we didn't have that, I wouldn't be a guide. I wouldn't have been able to survive. I couldn't do those higher quotas. Part-timers were 90 tours coming from out of state. It wasn't doable. With the quotas suspended, they've also eliminated the weekender category. So that's all fine. You don't need the category if they're not going to have a quota. Well, my fear is that they're going to issue the new manual, issue the new instructions, and then somewhere down the road, the superintendent will announce quotas. And then it'll be too late because the part-time category and the emeritus categories, the basically semi-retired guides, they have a smaller quota of the year. Those statuses are gone. So I'm hoping that
maybe they
happen.
could be grandfathered in.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But it's possible that there are some people who say the quotas are gone forever. You get a license, you tour. You do it when you want to. You do it when you can. You do it when you're needed. And they ask you, and you don't have to. You're not an employee, but we listen when they ask for. They send out emails that we're in a jam. People step up.
So without quotas, the only way the Park Service can understand how many guides they need is by pretty much the honor system of us turning in the number of tours we're doing for companies that they don't have access to. Like the Visitor Center reports their tours to the Park Service, but if I do tours for the Horse Tour Company, if I do tours for the Tour Center on Baltimore Street, I have to count those tours and the people on the tours.
I thought Tour Center was logged in.
No.
Oh. See, I'm learning on the program.
See, there you
Some
go.
people don't even that are working for the tour center don't know they have to do that, and their numbers are off for sure.
So, okay, what are some of the things that someone who has been dreaming, at least for the last 7 years, about being a guide here, might not have heard of or considered, that maybe even surprised you when you became a guide, about guiding, something that you didn't think was the case or whatnot? How about this?
It's different for me because I had so much time shadowing the park. Like, I worked on the park for 7 years before I became a guide, so I had a chance to talk to everybody. There wasn't a lot that surprised me. I know what I was getting into.
Yeah, that's what about this? Someone who says, I'm going to be a guide, I'm going to do it full time. What can they expect? about being a full-time guide. I know several of them. They each have a different situation. And it seems to me that, if you're retired and you've got some kind of retirement, full-time guide, totally possible. You don't even have to worry if it's making you a lot of money because
you have to pay for a lot on your own. So,
yeah.
There's a special kind. There are only a couple insurance companies that will cover you if you're in someone else's vehicle and you have a fender bender or something. And for some reason, whatever insurance they have doesn't cover.
I'm glad you brought up insurance. Do you need to get it as a licensed battlefield guide? Do you need to get some kind of liability insurance or extra vehicle insurance? You should, of course.
But it's not.
But do they? Do most guides do that?
I don't know. I don't know how many people have
But
it.
it's not required.
Most people have it.
The government does not check.
No.
If
Right.
that's what you mean.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Yeah, the government does not check. The National Park Service doesn't ask for documentation that you have insurance or proper insurance coverage.
But do you know anecdotally, do a lot of guides carry any kind of insurance for that?
Yes.
I mean, not regular car insurance.
There's a company that agreed to be an add-on to whatever car insurance you have that people go through that knows who we are and what the deal
you do
is because it's weird.
Because it's a unique thing. Again, it's not everywhere. So I would
It's unique in Pennsylvania. Because Pennsylvania is regulatorily speaking, is the Wild West.
You mean of guiding?
No, of insurance regulations.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, the unique thing is the licensed battlefield guide structure.
But, having lived in New Jersey and still having insurance with a New Jersey company, and they understand what I do, so even though I live in Pennsylvania, they're still insuring me as if I'm a New Jersey driver. Because of New Jersey state law, which is among the toughest insurance state laws in the United States, the insurance follows the driver. So wherever I go, whatever I drive, I go down to Daytona and I win a contest at lunch and I'm allowed to drive a McLaren around the field. The insurance is following me.
So it's not the vehicle, it's the driver.
It's a driver. I drive that McLaren into the stand and kill 5 people. It's a call to the insurance company. I thought that would be kind of unique, but bad example.
Right.
But the point is, whatever car I get into, the insurance follows the driver.
Interesting.
That's not true in Pennsylvania. You can get that kind of insurance, and they can also get riders where the unique situation. But I've had people with rental cars, and this has only happened a couple of times, but they call. They call the rental agency. Can we let him drive the car? And the guy thinks, okay. But they don't believe it,
Right.
So the guides I'm friendly enough with to know, something about their finances. So it's kind of strange.
For sure.
They know this.
Right.
They are covered with liability through their car insurance.
But then I've had some conversations, Jesse, you were part of it, and some of the people that were part of it had never considered it.
Yeah.
And so,
so you just check with your own insurance.
Yeah.
If they don't understand what you're talking about, we have an option that you can go with.
Yeah,
so it's not like,
But if you get the license, that's something that you should definitely look into, and I'm sure there are resources or people that you can talk to in the guide force already who can give you those answers.
I don't know about that. You call your insurance agent, and if your insurance agent can't answer the question, you got to get another insurance agent.
No, but I'm saying someone in the guide force might be able to point you in the direction of where to go to ask.
All of us have auto insurance, one hopes.
Yeah, but I mean, you're saying that not every auto insurance company does this. So
the agents know.
Yeah.
The agents know, and they'll
have you talked to an agent lately?
Well, no, unfortunately, knock on wood. But
no, everybody's automated.
I mean, let me put it that way. Let me be more expansive in the answer. If the agent you're talking to doesn't know, then you need to find an agent who does.
There you go. Or
talk
you
to
could
the
talk to someone
company
from
directly.
Right, or you could talk to someone from the guide force who can say, yeah, this is what I use.
All right, let's stop beating around the bush, okay? I'm not getting a commercial endorsement. You call New Jersey manufacturers in New Jersey, NJM. They don't have a mascot. They just have good insurance.
And
that's their commercial.
Right. That's their commercial.
They're my insurance company. They assured me.
And you don't need to live in New Jersey to get a policy with them.
No, they just expanded to Maryland and Pennsylvania.
There you go, folks. There you go. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
So cool. So there's your commercial. Call them. But of course, you could call any respectable insurance company.
Right.
And if not the agent, someone will explain, look, I drive other people's cars, including rentals. Mm-hmm. You have to ask about that because I've heard that that's not always covered
with
insurance. I was assured Whatever car you get into, the insurance is following you. Doesn't matter doesn't matter if someone stole the car.
Okay.
You're following the car, and the insurance follows you.
That sounds really good.
Well, it's the very way it should be.
Yeah, it is the way it should be,
Because
but most things aren't.
They're kind of trusting that.
Yeah.
So you got a couple coming in for a battlefield tour from West Virginia where there's no regulations on insurance at all. I'm teasing. I have no idea.
Right.
No. Making fun of West Virginia because, you can. And they come up and they think you're covered driving their car. They're assuming you know what you're doing when you say, I'd like to drive your car. And so you should make sure that you know what you're doing.
So you have to pay for a lot. And you should also talk to somebody about, and again, the Park Service has like a kind of introductory session after they license the guides about this kind of stuff. So you can ask questions. But to understand taxes, you have to do your own taxes and what's deductible because you do have to pay for a lot of stuff. And you can deduct health insurance. You can, anything that contributes to your...
Now, yeah, right. So so basically, if you're doing this and this is your sole income, like you're your own business, right?
Yes.
She mentioned,
would it be smart to make yourself an LLC? I mean, let me think here. You're out on a tour and maybe you do something, you make a mistake. You have a human moment and you get into an accident and the people sue you. You have an LLC, it protects your home. You don't have an LLC, they're suing you. So do guides LLC themselves? Should they LLC themselves? I would.
I don't know anything about that.
Aren't there any lawyers who are now guides that can advise everybody on this stuff? Like nobody, this is just like kind of the Wild West with this stuff, but nobody says, hey, here are some things you might want to think about.
Well, the liability involves your car. It's the insurance company.
Yeah, but you know that if something really egregious happens, they're going after everything. If something happens and anybody and everybody involved gets sued.
I don't think anyone considered it until you broadcasted it on this podcast.
Well, maybe you should. I'm worried about everybody's well-being here. I mean, Jesus.
No, the bad guys are listening to this.
The roster of guides is dropping as we speak.
There we go. We're narrowing down the competition.
Their licenses are all spinning through the front window of Angie's office saying, no, never mind.
I don't want to do this. I don't have an LLC.
I don't want to be sued by Matt Callery after I run him over.
No. I mean, I don't know. I just, I know like famous people, and I know it's not the same thing, but famous people are an LLC because they get sued all the time, and you got to protect your assets. So I just, you deal with the public, you deal with crazies.
All right,
so
we'll go home and we'll file an LLC.
Of course, talk to your lawyer. Don't take my advice.
With LegalZoom.
Yeah, there you go. Robert Shapiro will help you with that. All right, so what else? Anything else? So we covered insurance. We covered... I do want to know, though, maybe...
I'll go back to your full-time guide thing.
Yeah, that was where I wanted to go back.
You should get some... You want to talk about that, get some of them.
Get what?
Get some full-time guides.
On the show?
Yeah, because I don't know how to do it.
I'm full-time.
You're full-time?
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
you do nothing else? Oh, sad, but nicely done.
Yeah.
I said you just did it, and within minutes you have one here.
Right there. I got it right away.
So this is your sole source of income?
Yes.
Oh.
Now, she also won the lottery several years ago, so she doesn't have to really work, right?
Well, that's a conspiracy theory that Matt created.
Okay. It's not. But, yeah, so you can do a full-time income.
But I'm married, and, we have double.
That's where I'm going. Look, you're not a solo... person who's, not with somebody. Like you can do it as a full-time income.
It's not the full income of the house.
You're not making $150,000 as a guide, is what I'm saying. It's not the same as being a lawyer or something like that. Okay. So, and again, you are your own business, so you have to take that into account with taxes and all that other stuff. And
I also work somewhere else in the winter part-time to supplement the winter. I've been doing winter tours now.
Okay. So the winter, that was the next thing I wanted to get to. Winter tour. Even if you're a full-time guide, people are still coming here in the winter. Not as many of them. How much famine is it in the winter compared to the feast of the summer?
It's the dead season is really January.
Just that 1 month. Because
in February, school field trips start coming again, and February is really not that bad. I work at the ski resort in Fairfield, so they still kind of need me until March. But
right.
But if I try to work for more than one tour company, like booking car tours as well as out of the visitor center, It's not too bad. And because, the Gettysburg Address was November, people are coming, that's a pretty busy weekend.
Sure.
And then it kind of slides you through till Thanksgiving. A lot of people come home for the holidays and
Christmas,
go on the tours.
right.
And then people are home on break until, New Year's.
You're right. It really dries up in January. January is a very
But
depressing
it's longer
month.
than you think. So
Yeah.
I was surprised last year. Last year was my first year as a full-timer.
Mm-hmm.
The part-time license retires on Halloween. So except for special conditions, you don't do tours after Halloween until March, I think it was. They kept moving it as a target. So the winter is reserved for the full-timers, for the tours that happen. I'm full-time now because I live here and there's no quota, and I wanted to be able to tour when I want. I was surprised how busy December is.
Yeah.
So I feel like we should be giving advice for the people that are wondering whether they can commit to full-time if we do have quotas, because that's the worst-case scenario
for that,
them. So in the past, it was 175 tours a year, and that's easy to do in a couple months, like in the really busy season. So we have people that fly in from California, stay here for those months, or Pittsburgh,
Mm-hmm.
and then go back.
Now, so those
like
people,
from May until August.
right? Those people though who
September.
are flying in from Pittsburgh or California or whatever tend to have maybe they're retired lawyers or something. Like these are not people in their 30s who are just kind of still trying to figure out what they're going to do with their life, and then they can afford to do that on what they're making as a guide, right?
That was kind of convoluted.
What?
But you can flip over to my side. I never relied on guide income.
I guess that's my
Ever.
point, right? I mean, there's some people, I'm thinking of one guide who he's always out there, right? He works hard to keep touring, right? And he makes it full time. But you got to really hustle to do that. Correct or no?
I own a house and I can pay all my bills just guiding.
Right.
Like,
again, the lottery.
I don't have any extra money to do anything else if I do that. But it is possible, especially if you're renting an apartment, you can live full time off of guiding, and you can work harder than I do. So,
Yeah. And
Come on, you work very hard.
I don't work
No,
as hard
she's
as
very lazy.
I don't work as hard
Very
as some
lazy.
people. There's one of our guides who's definitely going to go over 500 tours this year, and
Right.
I am not going to do that.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you can really do that. If you want to keep your marriage together, maybe not, right? I mean, because that's a lot of...
Sometimes it's,
If you want to end it, then maybe that's what you could do.
How can I miss you if you'll never go away? There's that element. But on my side of it, I never once relied on guide income for anything.
Okay.
And I did sense some chauvinism at small periods of time among guides who were more dependent on the income, that they sort of those set level of somewhat resentment. Not resentment, but just like second-class status for guides who are just sort of doing it for the fun, quote unquote. They don't need to be guides. They're not looking for, they're doing it out of the love.
Sure.
Which is what amateur means, by the way.
Right.
I made enough money every year, and my clever accountant calculating everything from the coffee that I bought at the rest stop on the Pennsylvania Turnpike to every scrap of food.
Right.
Managed to calculate that I lost money every year, so I wasn't tax liable.
Right, there you go.
I wouldn't
Right.
want to discourage anyone from trying. Like, if you get the license, it's always in your back pocket. You can even if there are quotas, which I really don't think they're going to be. Maybe
that's
you
good.
full-time guide your first year, you can switch to part-time the next year. You don't have to commit to that
I'm
every
not
year.
trying to...
You can get another job if you feel like you have to do that, but it's worth it to have it because you'll always have it.
I'm not trying to dissuade anybody, but I want people to have a realistic picture, because I know there are people that think I'm just going to do this full time, and and they may still have dreams.
We know some of them, and it's like I don't know. I don't know much of personal stuff we want to get into.
Well,
this,
don't
but
name names or
we've
anything.
Well, I'm not naming names at all, but I had a better than average full-time income, and I donated money for guides who were raising money to pay for health care.
Okay.
And things like that happened. So
Yeah.
there were guides who didn't have the means to get tests done.
Right. So and really though, I guess what I'm trying to say is like this is like a truly pull yourself up by the bootstraps type of a thing. Like you can get out of it what you put in.
Yeah,
if you only do enough, then you get enough.
It's great fun.
Yeah.
It's great, very rewarding. The positives tremendously outnumber the negatives. But it is a job. I mean,
Like,
you,
I
you
would
get
say-
up and you're like, oh, I gotta go in, you know. But then you light it up before you get there.
Even though I work full time, like, I think I was surprised at how much I felt like I was already retired being a battlefield. Like, wow,
Right.
you know, I'm just going to coast this out, I guess, unless I change my mind. I don't know.
Yeah.
No,
But it feels you have so much freedom to just choose whatever you want to do. If you want to go to Normandy for the 80th anniversary, you can just leave. You can block off your schedule and do whatever you want. Just make it up.
I'm trying to get more in the swing of this retirement gig. A little slow on the uptake. So, like in the next 8 weeks, I'm home for 3 of them.
Yeah.
We're on the road. Jersey Shore, Adirondacks, Allegheny Mountains. We're just,
Yeah. You're enjoying your life.
Well, yeah.
That's what you-
my
that's what
wife
you
and I
work
work
for.
our whole lives to be able to go do stuff.
Right.
And for her, she's having a good time out here. She's more involved in things that I thought she would be, so that's great. She's starting to circle that history rabbit hole.
Good.
And getting sucked. She's going, she got to meet Martin Sheen at the film festival, so
Right,
that was like,
right.
ooh.
Right.
Of course, she thought it was Jed Bartlett. She didn't think it was Robert E. Lee, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, it's automatic, work. And, no, you got to take the time off. But up until I moved to Gettysburg a year and a half ago, I didn't make positive money.
Right.
And a lot of the guides that I knew who were traveling and are still traveling to get here, they're not making positive money. They have enough deductions from their gasoline and tolls to offset their income at tax time.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the point. So we're making money, but we're also piling up the deductions to make sure we don't have to pay anything. The warning, you can only do that for 4 years. I learned that from my accountant.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah. In the 5th year, you have to make some money, or the IRS says, this is not a job, this is a hobby. So
That's what my stained glass business is going to turn into.
By year 5, you have to show a positive. So that year, I showed like I made a net income of $200.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Okay, now we're fine for the next 5 years."
Oh,
We
that's so
can just,
silly. But so what you're saying then is that you should be prepared to do it for love of the game.
Yeah.
All right. Now.
And I think everybody I don't know, there's some people. I don't know how many people are going to take the exam saying, "Man, I really need this job." Maybe there are. But I think it's because it's so much work.
Well, say you have
to
2 jobs
apply.
like this
But
one's
that's-
fun.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
but it's such an immense amount of work to prepare for this exam.
But then once you have the license, though, it's a lot easier. I'm not speaking as someone who knows because I haven't done it, but from what I meet a lot of guys, I talk to a lot of guys, and this is what I'm gleaning.
More than we
is
do,
that-
probably.
And this is what I'm gleaning from everybody is that, once you get the license, once you get through the torture of the testing process, it becomes easier and you can you could do just what you're actually licensed for, which is the overview of the battle, right? Or you can, get really specialized if you want to.
As I have.
Right. But it's not required that you do. And I think.
Oh, no, not at all. But a lot of guys do.
Right.
Jesse's, our artillery chick.
girl,
yes, artillery, Madam Guns.
Yeah,
and I'm a July 2nd artillery guy, but overall July 2nd. I have a tour coming up. I can't wait. And in 10 days, I got 3 guys coming up for an 8-hour tour of the Peach Orchard to Wheatfield.
Nice.
I try to point out the fighting there only took place over 2.5 hours, so we could literally reenact the battle 2 times.
Yeah.
But I know what they mean. I know what they want. They want to go from monument to monument, learn each group where they were in what lines. The Wheatfield is awfully complicated, which can make it awfully fun. You live for that kind of tour.
Sure. But now if you are thinking, you're hearing that and you're thinking, oh my God, I don't know if I could really do that. I mean, how much research goes into just doing that one tour? You don't have to take that if somebody comes to you.
That comes by itself.
Right.
Well, you do get a lot of requests for specific, not a lot, but when people call the guide office because they want to talk to the guide directly before they go out. You have ancestor tours where people want you to, you have to take time, maybe away from, maybe you have to block off a tour, like give up a tour to actually research and make a tour better for somebody that's still paying you the same 2-hour rate, as everybody else. But you get to learn new stories. You get letters from people that nobody might know exists, that only their family has.
Yeah.
So there are cool little like nuggets like that come along when you do those specific tours.
This year, Jessie and I were both on the tour crew for the American Battlefield Trust annual conference,
Right.
which floats around, and this year came to Gettysburg. And, I had a tour group for 8 hours, advanced people. I mean, these people who donate substantial money to them. They know where they are. They know Gettys. They don't need to be told where the blue and the gray are, except for the hamburger place, maybe. They know, they're interested in who the second in command was when this guy got killed. And our tour focused on going through the Devil's Den to the wheat field and then up toward the peach orchard. And, I was floating on air. You could have carried me.
Yeah.
God, was that just fun. And that wasn't true when I started 20 years ago. That something sticks,
Do you think
you grow into that specific specialty.
Yeah,
And
and you kind of really... you kind of have to do that, because if you try to make your specialty everything, you're just chasing your tail over and over again. Like, you have to go back in and relearn it every time, and it's just exhausting because you're giving away tours to make time to do to get everything ready.
Yeah.
So if you just have one subject or one or two that you focus on more than anything else, that's why I see a lot of people doing that, just because it's hard to juggle everything at that level while you're giving general tours to the public in between.
How about the license opens doors for you to do non-tour gigs, like maybe go speak at a round table and get paid for it? You can get paid for it. I mean,
you don't really get paid.
You don't. Well, I mean, but you could. I mean, I got paid to go speak at a round table.
You get an honorarium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but what I'm saying is money changes hands, and that license opens the door for those opportunities.
That's yes,
right. And then if you can write a book, as you've done, Jessie, you're working on
you'll
one.
make a ton of money on that. Yeah, yeah.
No. I'm saying the book also will help get your foot in the door to these and get invited to
and
these.
you can make connections with whoever you want to, with the college, there's all sorts of avenues you can go down to branch out and work with
really
other
is
people.
Interesting to look at how all the guides have their own little thing going and what they do with it and how it works for them. That's true.
Right.
I mean, all the ones that do. Yeah, you're right. Not everybody does that.
And Jessie made a point, but you can't overemphasize the point she made.
I won't.
For its correctitude. You can't be every place.
Right.
Charlie Fennell and Sue Boardman, they own Culp's Hill.
Right.
I know where it is. I'm teasing. I can walk you up and down Culp's Hill. And I think the story of the 2nd Massachusetts is fantastic.
Sure.
And I've given the horse tours. We do the 2nd Massachusetts up close for 10 minutes. But it's not an area of expertise.
Well, and some people feel really bad when they have to say, like, I don't know enough about that to go into that. But it's like, that's why they trust you. Like, that makes people feel so much better when they know where you'll tell them there's a line, that you don't feel like you've got to make stuff up, because nobody likes being lied to.
And that's something that the park wants you to do, is say, I don't know, correct?
They don't what they want. We don't.
Well, okay, let's pretend that...
But
there's an answer to
maybe
that
I
question.
don't know, but I can help you find the answer.
That's what I was always told.
You can follow up with an email if you want to do it yourself. You can.
And the guides, a guide after a couple of years of giving tours, I don't know what the magic number is. You become skilled enough that if you have to do a specialized tour, we've given enough time, you can do it. So you can put together a tour on almost anything.
Right.
I had 4 ladies coming out that were connected to friend of a friend of a friend. I had to give them a tour. There was no, of course, I'll be delighted to give you a tour. And they were coming out. And it turned out that 3 of them had relatives in the 1st New Jersey Cavalry. And here I am. Okay, I'm pretty sure I know where that monument is. But within 4 or 5 days... Just bearing down. I happen to be fortunate. I have the OR and the Batchelder papers on my bookshelf, so I don't have to go running find them. Not that they're that hard to find. They're right in the guide library, but I was living in New Jersey when I was doing that, and I was able to give them a good detailed tour on the 1st New Jersey out on the East Cab battlefield once I found it. It's over by Royal Farms.
Yep.
So that's part of the guide craft, is that you will learn that really almost no tour can flummox you unless you're doing 8 hours. But the specialization will select you almost. You will fall into something.
I was just going to ask you.
And you will find, Gary Edelman, one of the senior historians, and all of a sudden it's just the Devil's Den became like an obsession for him.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote it to him, and the guy who shall not be named wrote the definitive, the paperback, that's been reprinted and is still in wide use.
Tim Smith.
Yeah, okay.
You
Tim
can
Smith.
say his name.
All right, I don't know.
Yeah, we have no problem with Tim here.
Right,
we like Tim.
All right, cool. And that sort of happens to you. We got our Little Round Top crowd. If you want to do 6 hours on Little Round Top, I'm not your man.
Mm-hmm.
Because they didn't need guns to defend Little Round Top. Matt, I'm not. If you're aware of that, they could have just rolled the rocks down.
That's so I've heard.
All
they need to do is roll rocks down.
So everybody's. I helped organize for the Guides Association the July 1. We did the Oak Ridge tour a couple of years ago,
right?
And people were saying, as we're recruiting faculty and getting different people to teach them, what about you? Which one are you doing? I says, no, the reason I'm doing the coordinating is I don't want to do any tours on first day.
Right.
My idea of first day, there's the peace light. Kennedy thought it was cool. So do you. Let's get out of here. and off we go.
Not a big first day guy.
I'm not leading a 2-hour tour on the how the 90th Pennsylvania refused its line.
Right.
What? That's why I had other guys.
Sure.
So you have the first day guys, and they're the ones who put that program
so
together.
So it behooves a guide to get along with other guides, because you might be able to pull someone into something, or they'll do it for you. And right. You say that the subject or the specialty selects you. I was going to ask you, if someone says, I want to do a tour on some obscure regiment or whatever, and you're like, oh geez, and it's like they got for no other choice, or you need the money, or whatever the reason is, you decide you're going to do it, and you go and you look into it, and you're like, wow, this is more interesting than I thought it was. Mm-hmm. And then now all of a sudden you become obsessed with that, and then you become the guy who's that regiment,
Right. And it gets around. I've had a good number of peach orchard tours that I've done that the people said they were referred by somebody.
Yeah.
Where they talked to someone that they knew, they met at a round table, they ran into somewhere, and says, you want to get in touch with Ralph, do that tour. Mm-hmm. He'll take you out to the peach orchard. He'll tell you stuff we've never heard.
And it also might behoove you to come on a podcast like this one, for example.
Well, indeed, as I have.
And you get tours off of that.
Entirely for self-promotion.
Yeah.
I
don't. Is that still a rule? You can't self-promote. I mean, with social media, how is that?
It was a rule so that guides don't puff up themselves at the detriment to other guides. To say that I'm better than Ralph because I do but it's not a good example.
Right. Yeah.
You're not supposed to advertise yourself as a separate business.
Right, to put yourself...
Okay. Wow, put a finger on that one.
Right, which you are a separate business, but you're not supposed to advertise as well.
But there's the ethics of having to... You're all in the same ship together.
Wasn't it also like at the time where there was no social media or anything like that, if you were rich and you could buy a billboard and everybody else can't, that's an unfair advantage.
And that was clear.
But
and
now it's
to advertise
equal.
Yourself by name, to say that I'm the person you want,
right.
not these other people.
Right.
And I don't think any of us talk about each other. I mean, there's a few.
I've never heard anybody do that,
like that.
But maybe.
But there's just such a need for tours that every guide is going to be able to do all the tours they want. Like, even if someone would take out a billboard today,
right,
they would be full with. They wouldn't be there's only so many tours you can do.
Sure,
in your time. So it.
But you don't even need to take out a billboard today. You just have to have a Facebook
like
page.
It did in the past.
Right. It's different now. The internet has equalized everybody because it's free to have a Facebook page. So
many guides have business cards. Apparently, that was frowned upon at one time.
Well, our charm school, what we call, where they gave us the rules, to be fair, we had a new guide supervisor.
Okay.
Brand new, just came in, Clyde Bell.
Oh, yeah. Great guy.
And he was kind of figuring it out as he was going along. So we weren't sure where some of it. Now looking back on it, I'm not sure where some of the stuff he said to us was coming from. But this is prior to Al Gore inventing the interwebs.
Okay. Early
The
days.
Facebook and all of that wasn't really an issue, so the park hadn't addressed it yet.
Right.
So he said, you are allowed to do a business card. You're not allowed to set it up in a store.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, now I'm not following. Well, I don't want to walk into a coffee shop and see a little packet of your business cards
Sure.
next to the if you need your house painted business card.
But could you give it to
that.
Could you give it to the front desk at a hotel?
You can give it to anybody you want to,
but not
He
have
said-
it displayed.
You want to walk around the Days Inn and shove it under the doors of all the rooms. There's nobody says you can't do that.
Okay.
So the line was gray.
Yeah.
So basically, we
they
rely
didn't pin it
on
down.
we rely on those businesses like the Heritage Center and the bed and breakfasts to just promote guiding.
Yes.
So we don't have we're not raising money. We have some to promote the guide office so that people know there's always an option outside of all those other businesses to book guides directly. So we have rack cards that we distribute for that.
Right.
But for the most part, relying on the Gettysburg Foundation and everybody to just do their own. And Destination Gettysburg does a lot to promote guiding.
Yeah, right. And interesting. Gettysburg does a lot to promote guiding. Oh, thank you. Thank you for
do a
recognizing.
lot. You're my number one marketing. I get so many calls.
Thank you.
I heard you on Matt's program, and despite the fact that I heard you, I still want to take you out on a tour. Yes.
Right.
And that was one. I give you an example of a good vendor, and I mean good. They obey the rules. They've never run into trouble with the park, and they used a certain booking service. I guess we could say it was a Fair Harbor.
Yeah, Fair Harbor.
I'd be giving them away, but Fair Harbor is used by lots
Everybody
of people.
uses it. Yeah, I
And
use
so
it.
they were promoting topic-specific tours, Little Round Top, Cups Hill, Peach Orchard, and putting photographs of the guide next to the tour. And they were told to knock that off.
Really?
Yeah. It was innocently done. They said, can you send
Sure.
a picture? Yeah. And so there's a little face, and this tour will be, and it names the guide.
Right. You can't put the picture.
They thought that was over-promoting. And they said, we're promoting that this is the guy who's given the tour, but don't put his picture. And they were confused, but the answer is yes, sir, whatever.
Yeah.
I feel
And
like we
so-
can't give good answers for a lot of this because it's
Yeah.
such a
No,
mess.
no.
It's like
see,
showing how messy this
But
is.
that-
But you know,
just-
but
Yeah.
exactly that's the point though. Is like a lot of people that I'm aware of who are studying for the guide exam don't live here.
Yeah.
And their peek into what it's like here is the
We're
few
not
times
making it
they
any
visit.
easier.
No, but like it's a few times they visit, and if they're watching this show now, they're getting a bigger peek into things, and that's the thing is like I'm not a guide, but I know a lot of guides, and I see what people say online, and I hear what guides tell me about their actual experiences now. And they don't always match. So that's why I want to do this.
I will tell you this, and Jessie already said this was true for her, so I'll add my own, is that I was coming to seminars and I was coming out to Gettysburg. I became a guide after meeting a guide on a newspaper assignment. I met Joy Bowden, took me around
I remember
the field,
Joy, yeah.
and I was just so enchanted. And I said, "Whoa, you get to take people around on tours. You get people. This is the greatest. I've never heard of this. This is fabulous."
Right.
And she goes, "Yeah." And I was asking her more questions about what she was doing than about the stuff I was supposed to be writing about.
Right.
And that's when I sort of explored it a little more. And I got to know guides, and I knew a good number of guides and had been to seminars and had hung around with them, drinking beers, etc., before I committed to taking the test. We can't assume, and like you said, you were around here for years and years, we can't assume that of people who are registered to take the test.
No.
They should. They should watch guides. They should come in May and watch them trying to figure out which bus they're supposed to get on.
Right.
As 7 buses pull up at the same time.
Right.
And then it's bumper cars as they're on the way out, and kids screaming in the back, and sometimes the teachers are the worst problem. They're not,
Yeah.
Only if they're from New Jersey.
I took a school group around, and he said, "Don't worry, these kids will be disciplined. They'll listen to you." And he spent half the tour screaming at them.
Really?
And I mean, I didn't even know what the infraction was.
It's so awkward when
Excuse
you have to
me,
sit
Ralph,
up there and they're yelling at the kids.
Just stop for a minute, Ralph. All the kids are sitting there turning white. He's screaming at this one guy, and here we drive past the Robert E. Lee statue saying, well, there, okay, bye.
The tour is just flying by you, and you're just...
Because the bus driver, he's going faster and faster the more he keeps screaming. Get me out of here. And, yeah, it wasn't much of a tour. It's... I wonder... I mean, I worked with a group of 3 guys. We all wanted to be guides. One guy was commuting from California, so that's as off the wall as you can get.
Yeah,
but he was planning a retirement. He had legal work in Washington, and he was coming up to Gettysburg, and he ended up buying a house here, and he's doing tours. He knew what it was.
Right.
I wonder how many people take, and maybe on the podcast or something we can do. Do you really know what it is to be a guide? Because you got to come here.
Well, that's the idea.
Do you have questions for this episode or not?
No. This is just, I wanted to just talk with you guys with some of the questions I have and see what that might spark from you guys.
You got to come here.
Yeah.
And you got to do tours.
How about not only do you got to come here and take tours, but like you need to understand the land. You can study from books from the West Coast all you want, but you still have to set foot.
There's one. This is one of the things for long distance guide candidates as a disadvantage, and there's just no 2 ways around it. You can't. What you just said. In theory, you can. But I don't think you can.
In other words, it's not practical.
No. I hammer in to people like Michael Lentz.
The great 6 questions
who
Lentz.
is, reading books at the graduate college level.
Right.
And I'm like, for the exam, man, bring it down.
Right.
Bring it down. Order a battle.
Right.
I hammered that. There's 2 guys I know in New Jersey at a round table I work with who are preparing for they want to be guides. They know what it is. They're school teachers. They're looking down retirement. They're going to come in the summer and be guides and retire out here. So they know what it means. And like, order a battle. Learn the OB and then get on the battlefield. Because the battlefield doesn't make sense until you have the OB burned into your head. Because now you're putting the regiments and the brigades on the field.
Right.
And now the pieces are starting to move in front of you.
Yeah.
Okay, so when Garnett's brigade does this, Kemper's doing this, and then you're picturing it, and you're picturing the regiments because you know them.
Right.
If you don't know that order of battle, that battlefield doesn't come alive.
Right.
And that's just to pass.
Yeah.
And then when you're given a tour to be a good guide, you're doing that to the visitor. Maybe not with the names, but you're bringing the battlefield to life so that they feel like they're seeing what you did.
Would you say they need to know down to regimental level or brigade level?
Well, when you say regimental, you should know the regiments in the big brigades.
In the big brigades, not all the brigades.
I don't think you need them. It's hard to tell because I'm not working on writing the exam.
Right.
But in my exam, you needed to know the regiments in significant brigades. Iron Brigades, Vincent's Brigade. I thought Kershaw's was always very, very important in the initial attack of McLaw's division. You certainly know where all the divisions poke in and where all the brigade commanders, and not just who the commanders are, but where they are in sequence on the battle. Whose division comes up first. When Pender comes up, which brigades are coming up and where are the other ones? And it's like, well, okay, that's technical and trivial. No, it's not.
Right.
It might be at a glance, at a distance. If I'm doing this at Columbia, taking a graduate class, that is trivial. But not on the battlefield. On the battlefield, that's how you're translating the ground you're looking at into motion. Oh, okay, so this brigade went that way. Pickett's going that way. And the North Carolinians are going this way, and they're looking over at Pickett. Fry's looking over at Pickett saying, what are you doing over there? I thought we were going this. Or more on the second day.
Right.
When Manning's, when first... Philip Work's First Texas is moving up the road toward the peach orchard. I'm following my orders up the Emmitsburg Road. Where's everyone else going? Oh, my God, they're all going over there. So is General Hood.
Yeah.
You got to know what these regiments are to explain to someone, well, what happened.
Right.
They went that way, they went this way. You got to know who went that way and who went this way. And in order to know that on the field, you have to know the order of battle.
Do you need to know the colonels' names? important colonels?
The big regiments.
Well,
Yeah.
let's so step away from the test, and you're on a tour, and you can't just pull over anywhere because a lot of places you're not allowed to park anymore, and then there's not enough shade. It could be a really hot day. There's already a guy under this tree. There's already you're gonna have to walk them through a tick field if they have to go somewhere else,
Right.
because they don't mow the grass
Yeah,
anymore.
ticks are something this year, man.
So it can be difficult to choose a place to stop. So if you can only stop by a random monument, you should be able to fit that story into the brigade story where you're standing. So knowing it at the brigade level, you don't have to know exactly what that individual regiment did throughout each step of the process. But if you know it at the brigade level, everyone understands what's going on, where you are.
How about things like park rules? And not so much you following them, because we're going to assume if you have a license, you've demonstrated that you know enough of whatever they were looking for during the oral.
On my oral exam, I drove through a stop sign.
Did you?
Yeah.
Do you want to
believe
admit that? Can they revoke your
remember,
license?
we talked about that at my first program,
Yeah,
and Eric
yeah.
said, are you sure you're not going to get in trouble for saying all this?
That's right.
I went through a stop sign, and Clyde said, you just drove through a stop sign. And Devil Ralph on the left shoulder said, well, that's a stupid place to have a stop sign. And Angel Ralph on the right shoulder said, say you're sorry. Oh, I'm very sorry. I didn't think it applied for the right turn. I'm sorry. Yeah, you can't drive through a stop sign. 6 months later, the sign was gone.
Oh, really? Where was it?
It was a right turn on Culp's Hill in front of a do not enter. There was no reason for a stop sign there.
Yeah. Coming off of Carmen?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's coming onto Carmen, driving up that road.
Oh.
Where the road comes back from the 3rd Wisconsin,
Yeah.
and there's do not enter. You have to make a right turn.
Right, you
there
have
was
no
a
other
stop
choice.
sign at that corner.
Oh, well, that's stupid.
Well, and it's gone
it's
now.
gone, thank God.
I call it the Siegel Memorial Stop Sign. I have no idea. It had nothing to do with me. But eventually, they heard our complaints. It's, well, it's a dumb place to have a stop sign.
Yeah.
He's right.
Yeah.
And but yeah, they dinged me for that. But that was on my first oral. I was allowed to do a second one.
So stop signs aside, when you, as a licensed battlefield guide, are on Little Round Top and you see a father let his kids get up on the Warren statue boulder.
I'll let Jessie answer
We
for
are,
herself.
as
stop 'em.
guides licensed by the Park Service, we are committed to the park's mission statement.
Right.
There you go. Good answer.
Good one.
So look it up, because you should know it.
So in other words, obviously you're not law enforcement officers, but if you see someone violating a rule,
we have a duty to uphold, everything that they're trying.
So
to.
what is the tact that you recommend someone take with that? Because people don't like being told they can't do something. I know this.
Well,
for
you
a
can just
fact.
tell them, like, hey, I'm just trying to be nice to you. If a ranger comes along, they're going to have something to say about it.
So going, sir, you can't let your kids go up there.
Okay, that's wrong. Yeah,
Right.
You're right. That would be 0 on a scale of 10.
Right. Okay.
But I've been around 4 or 5, depending on the mood I'm in.
Yeah.
And the people I lose patience with, and it just happened last week. And I was in a car full of retired cops, and they all patted me on the back. Oh, you're good. I would have kicked the guy's ass. Like, okay, well, I'm glad you didn't
Sometimes
get out
it's
of the
critical
car.
because sometimes you see people swinging off the monuments like monkey bars. I saw
I haven't seen that.
a teacher of some sort of church group doing that.
What?
John Burns, he was swinging off his gun as the tour bus was going by.
You're kidding me.
Grief.
And did you stop were you on the bus?
The bus driver yelled at him.
Did he?
We were stopped at the Virginia Memorial, and a bus had stopped in front of us, and all the kids climbed on Ward's battery cannon like lice.
Yeah.
They were all on all
Yeah.
the cannon, and the adults are standing there picking their nose in a group, talking about whether they should bet on the Celtics. And I rolled down the window. I said, "Look, fellas, I'm sorry. I'm going to say something." And so, you want us to say something? No, you just no, thank you, but no, I'll handle it. And I rolled the window down, and I did say to him, and I probably 4 on a scale of 10 in tactfulness. I said, "I really shouldn't need to tell you adults that they can't do that."
Nice.
And they overreacted, of course. So they yelled at all the kids and went on the bus.
Right.
Which is not what I was telling them to do. I was just telling them to get the hell off the. But all 4 cannon had kids crawling on them, and these guys are all standing. I said, "You really need me to tell you this?
Yeah.
You need me to tell you, don't let them climb on the cannon."
Apparently so.
Evidently.
Yeah.
Well, how many
And I may
how
have
many
been less
park
tactful.
rangers and battlefield guys can look back through their photo albums and find their parents sitting them on a cannon?
Or themselves. That is the thing. Is I remember I put a picture up of a woman in lingerie straddling a cannon that she put on Facebook or whatever it was, and I shared it on Instagram, and people were calling for her head and all this stuff. And my cousin private messaged me. She's like, I don't get it. I have pictures of us as little kids at Manassas sitting on cannons, and I'm like, yeah, I know. But A, we were little kids, and B, things are different now. Like, we look at things differently
You forget
now.
that, like, a lot of people have city parks where they have cannons, like, in the middle of, the playground, and it's just, when it's not on the actual battlefield, people treat them differently.
Yeah. I actually saw a family having a picnic on one of, I forget which one it was. It was one of the monuments in Baxter's Brigade. They were sitting around, they had food sitting out there, and, I'm sure nobody caught them and nobody said anything, but you see it.
One of my proudest moments as a comedian came early on at Cushing's Battery, where they practically ran me over. I'm talking to a group right at the angle. We've completed a tour, and the kid just brushes right past me. One holds the spokes of the gun, the other one climbs right on it. And the parents are standing right there, and they're like looking at me, like thinking I'm going. Like
a lot of people think they're all fake.
Yeah.
And I'll say, you understand that has live ordnance in it and could go off any minute. And the people in my group are looking at me like, I go, oh, no, I'm just for them, And they but they ran.
Yeah.
Oh, they're nuts, Sam.
It's going to blow.
This place is insane.
Right.
It's live ammunition on the battlefield. Yeah, it serves you right. Get out of here.
Yeah. But okay, so now, all right. So
you don't have to confront people. Like, we have
you don't have to, but you should.
You can call the Adams County non-emergency number, and they disperse the Park Service to whatever the issue.
We're all given the non-911 phone number for dispatch, and I'm on Park Watch.
So now, wait a second. Now hold on.
They're the ones who dispatch the Rangers.
Yeah, but so the Rangers don't have their own number for dispatch. Like, you have to do it through Adams County.
Yeah, there's not. The Ranger office doesn't have a dispatcher.
I did not know that. I did not know
maybe
that.
we shouldn't have said that out loud on the air for all the miscreants and criminals now to head toward Gettysburg.
Well, there's still a way to
but we
get
are
them.
There are more spies on the battlefield than you think.
We are all given the non-emergency phone number for Adams County.
Right.
So they know it's not a 911 call, and it will transmit an immediate message to Ranger on patrol. The Rangers are on patrol. That's not why we don't want the Rangers sitting in that little building, looking at the sunset. They're driving around, but they're in constant. They respond to Adams County.
Yeah,
because there's mutual support. Borough of Gettysburg has a bank robbery. Rangers are coming.
Oh yeah.
Rangers have some kind of an issue with the possible firearms. Gettysburg Borough or Cumberland Township are coming. So they're in a mutual support arrangement.
Interesting.
Well, and likewise, if there's ever an emergency on the park and you call the police, the Park Service will get there faster if they can.
Sure.
Yeah.
So,
and I have to tell you, along the line of what we're talking about, if there is actual, like those kids climbing on the guns at the Virginia Memorial, if they had a guide with them in their group who wasn't saying something, that would be a problem. So there is that. I mean, I don't hang around at the guide office in the visitor center an awful lot. I get my tours out of Heritage, so I don't know. But generally, the guides are not rats. There's sort of a code among all people, and baseball players, who stole the coaches.
They're not rats to...
You don't rat each other out.
Each other, yeah. Right.
But you could get in trouble if there's a violation of rules going on one of your tours, and you're not acting. That could be an invitation to visit the superintendent's office. Mm-hmm. I've never heard of that. But, the rules are specific. We are certainly to intervene if we see threatening behavior or something that could damage a monument. We see somebody climbing around on monuments. If somebody's not doing something, we should say something.
What do you do about the beavers? What are you obligated when they damage things?
They have to damage something.
Yeah.
They have to damage something.
The valley isn't enough.
And I'm happy to advertise on Addressing Gettysburg. In July, we'll be kicking off kayak tours. The kayak tours of Little
right.
Round Top, Valley of Death. We will be
Getty's
following in the footsteps of the Pennsylvania Reserves and the 6th New Jersey as they
right.
slosh through the knee-deep water.
Yeah. And we're going to have paintball Navy wars in the fall on the lake. It'll be a lot of fun.
And I know you do remember.
I do.
And are clearly not showing adequate respect for the fact that I'm a Team Beaver.
I fully am aware
I bought
that you're
your
a team
Beaver T-shirt.
Thank you, but you're on the wrong team.
Not knowing what it meant until you explained later. But the truth of the matter is, and I...
so you didn't know what it was, but
I
you bought
didn't
it?
know that it meant
I didn't
that.
know that.
Yeah. I just thought it was cute, and then you said, "Well, it means you're anti-park and anti."
No, it means you're anti-history,
anti-preservation. And I'm like, well, yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have worn it to the podcast.
Right.
But the fact is, as much as it's going to upset 90% of podcast world, and they're not doing.
I didn't know you didn't.
They're not doing any damage. They're not doing any damage.
They're doing damage.
It's a wetland, and wetlands
The
fill up with
landscape
water.
looks completely different.
It does.
I was told,
They've got to remember they're shooting deer by the boatload every winter.
I don't have complaints about the deer.
Right, because
they're not flooding the monuments.
Well, no, they're damaging the forest.
Oh, boo-hoo.
Well, that's why they're shot.
Boo-hoo.
And I shoot them myself.
I can't.
Yeah.
I got to shut up if I don't agree.
Well, no, but
no, you have to speak up if you don't agree. That's the whole point.
No, you're not allowed to anymore.
Oh, she's Team Mozart now?
Are you Team Mozart or Team Beaver? Always Team Mozart, yeah.
You're
outnumbered here.
I know it's a controversial point, but I'm also a birder geek.
I have to say, this is why I'm on the fence, is because as much as I despise the lake and what it symbolizes, I also enjoy looking at the blue herons, the tranquility of the lake, and that idiot I saw the other day fishing off of a boulder. Did you see that?
I feel bad I saw the posting, yeah. I'm not so sure it wasn't staged, but I feel bad for the Canada goose, the two geese.
They can live anywhere.
Yeah, they
picked
wings.
They picked a bad spot. Well, have you seen them lately?
No.
They got two youngins.
There were like 3 last time I saw.
Last time I saw them, there were 7.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're getting run over by cars on Crawford.
Well, that you shouldn't put the lake there.
They should have put.
If you care about the wildlife, move them to safety.
Well, no.
You're not going to win this here.
The geese are going to show up no matter. The geese will come to a swimming pool.
Not if there's not a lake.
Well, okay.
They're not going to show up if there's not a lake.
Something, you've convinced me. You're right. I have completely changed my mind.
I won.
Drained the swamp, baby. Let's get that T-shirt.
No. We'll stay away from that one. All right.
I think, I have to tell you, I think before the year's over, they will do more.
I think you're wrong.
The park will do something.
So I really don't think it's funny.
I know you're wrong.
I don't think it's funny, but I do wish if they do relocate the beavers that they do it like Dumbo style, like they
Operation Dumbo Drop?
evacuate them with like a helicopter and like fly them out.
So we could all see it.
So we can watch it.
Makes
so
national
no one can
news.
doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, but I have to tell you something. Those beaver got here. Right?
They did.
They didn't get brought in by some miscreant Mexican cartel.
No.
How do you know?
Which means
that's true. There's the beaver cartel.
When they're removed, other ones will get here.
Well, you know what? I've been coming here for 30 years. I haven't seen beavers ever.
Me neither.
Yeah. So everybody's like, "Oh, the beavers have been here before." Yeah, but not for a long time.
What I'll hang my last moral defense on the beavers on.
Go ahead. Let's see if this works.
I have heard people say, "Well, the beavers weren't here during the battle."
How do we know? Well, actually, we know because there were cattle there.
No,
there was no beaver lake here during the battle.
That's true.
There was no beavers here because they had already been wiped out in the state of Pennsylvania by beaver trappers and hunters.
So we need to bring trapping back.
So it's not okay. Well, that's
that's
not really where I was going.
Okay.
I was going
I'll let you finish.
It's not the beavers' fault they weren't here during the battle.
Right, okay.
If it were up to them, they would have been here.
Okay.
They didn't really want to be on Abraham Lincoln's head.
I was just going to say they were on somebody's head.
They would have preferred to be left alone, skin and all, to cause trouble wherever they felt like.
Okay, fair enough. And we'll leave the beavers to rest now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll have a little bit of a fun question here. How would you recommend someone... they're new, they have their license, and they encounter their first know-it-all dad. How do you handle that?
The tour is theirs. So the premise of your question,
yes,
as a defense attorney for a recent trial in New York would say, I don't accept the premise of your question.
Okay.
They own the tour.
All right. Yeah.
And the sooner the guide learns that, the better. That may be some advice for new guides.
Yes.
It's not your tour.
Right. And the reason I ask that is because I have some people in mind who I think look at it as, you are lucky that I am the one giving you this tour, and they don't look at it that way.
Your podcast has a minimal chance this guy's listening, so I can say that. Your podcast,
Don't say names.
Your podcast audience will find, particularly any that ever met me or been on tours with me, will find it hard to believe the following statement. But I went on a tour today with a guy who talked more than I do.
Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Wow.
high octane.
Yeah.
He just wouldn't stop telling us stories while we're driving around the battlefield. It was perfectly fine.
Uh-huh.
And I think of the stuff that I didn't tell him about the field. He was having a time. He was having a great time. He was very happy at the end of the tour. It was a 4-hour tour, booked as a 4-hour tour, and he talked more than I did.
So how did you handle that?
You have to cancel
a conversation.
tours. You have to cancel tours if you blow out your voice. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I always say we're delicate creatures because
Oh,
if we so much as just lose our voice, we're useless.
It's true. You can't work. Yeah.
We can't work. So people have had to, in the bus season this year, cancel tours because they talk too much.
So in a way,
any opportunity to sit back and just let it go.
So that's like a help then if you get a guy like you had there, is because now you get to rest your voice.
Unless you see the rest of the family struggling. Like if you see that they want this person to stop,
But that's their job to tell them to shut up.
I mean, you can just read the room, No,
if you're on a bus or in a van and one person's hogging up all the attention, you gotta, and your chaperone's not taking control, you do have to kind of take control.
Sure. I'm thinking in a car, though.
This is not that deal. This is husband and wife, and they were having a fine time, and he was just telling me stories of his days in law enforcement. There was this one time I got a guy, this monument reminds me of this time, and off he'd go, and I'm just, okay, well, that's enough about the 90th Pennsylvania. Let's just keep driving down, and maybe another one will get his attention.
Right.
And that's the way the tour went. And
the wife quietly dies inside.
Wouldn't have been my preference. Well, she's married to him, so she's been listening to him talk.
She's dead. She's dead already.
But the point is, that's their tour.
Yeah.
And one of the things they introduced in my exam that's now fortified in the exams she took and all the others is this concept that Gettysburg is a gateway park.
Mm-hmm.
It's an entryway to American history and to the Civil War.
Right.
So the guides are tested now, as we were, more now, I think, on other stuff than just Gettysburg. Overall Civil War things. Where did this happen? Where did that happen? Causes of the Civil War. So you can have this discussion with people. I had a tour earlier this week. I enjoyed it very much. It was last week. We were at the North Carolina Memorial, and here's this, here's that. That's great. Oh, look at that. Oh, flame on the top. Oh, that's cool. And here's, and we stop in North Carolina, and the guy was just waiting for a chance to just let it out.
Right.
I was standing in North Carolina talking to Pickett, and he said, all of this with taking monuments down and the lost car and now they're changing the base where I had basic training. He's a veteran, and there were 3 of them there, and we were at the North Carolina for 45 minutes talking about the college stuff, because that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Now that's not my tour plan. Now I'm not stopping. And we zipped through Devil's Den and went up to the angle to finish up because we'd eaten up so much time. But that's what they wanted to do.
But now you bring up something because it's hard to avoid nowadays, and that is modern politics being infused into Civil War history. And what do you
It's always been a part of it. It's
sure. But what do you do what are you supposed to do when you have someone who comes on and they hate the Confederates and they don't want anything to do?
I've got stuff I can. What do you do?
My goal is to make sure that they leave the tour wanting to do more research on their own. If you think that they've got some backwards way of thinking about something, the more you read, that will go away. It has
true.
for me on a lot of things. I didn't really understand.
That's why some people refuse to read about the Confederates because they're afraid that it'll go away. They love the hatred.
You're not wrong.
I know. I have a friend like that.
Well, and if they're taking a tour in the first place, they've already made the first step. They want something from you,
Yes.
even if it's only 5 minutes of your 2-hour tour. They want something. They're open to something from you.
Right.
And if you can plant the right seed to get them moving in a direction that will help them learn more about what they, might have a lot of misconceptions about, then that's the goal. You can't control the speed at how they will come to that conclusion.
Let's see what some of our
Yeah.
adoring patrons are saying here. We've got some comments, and one going back to the order of battle, excuse me. Grant says, Tim Smith said that he recorded the order of battle on tape and then listened over and over during his work as a truck driver of something like that. And that's exactly right.
Yeah.
He probably said that elsewhere, I'm sure, but he actually said that on one of our earliest episodes that he was on. And like the day after, I went into the studio I had at the time and got out Coddington, opened the back, and I read into the microphone the order of battle for both armies. And I was so unwilling to sit and go through that and edit my my stutters, my mispronunciations of names and things like that, and my retakes, that it sat there for 5 years. And I figured, since this is a guide year, I started editing it the other day to release so that people can listen to it over and over and over again.
Oh, you wanted to put it out as part of your package of so you. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I figured. Well, because because then someone's got to get with their phone or something and record themselves doing it, and if they mess up, then they're not going to edit it out. Most people aren't going to do that. So I figured I'll just do it for them. But it took me 5 years to build up the desire to want to sit and edit.
But that's you, and you have a different you have a different outcome. Well, okay, you said it, not me. I'm going to get that T-shirt now. I learned this from George Gargis. It was a suggestion of what he did. He opened Coddington, and he wrote out the order of battle by hand.
Yeah,
he copied it down on a piece of paper with a pen. Mm-hmm. And then he heard that I was recording it and putting it on a cassette tape so I could listen to it in the car while I was driving around. At that time, my job involved a fair amount of driving around New Jersey to meetings. I was doing real estate closings, and so I would sometimes have a 2-hour drive to Cape May. I'd pop in a tape and listen to Order of Battle. You can't do it at night while you're driving home because you'll
sleep.
You'll wrap your car around the pole.
Do you want to do that? We can do the Ralph voice if that's what you're into.
That'd be great.
Right, we're doing Alexa and the man. Right.
Yeah.
and so then George heard what I said, and then he read his handwritten into a recorder and taped it. Mm-hmm. Now it's not the tape; it's the production, the writing down onto your own piece of paper and then reading it.
Right.
You're memorizing doing that.
Correct.
By the time you're listening to the tape, you're already 50% of the way there.
It's just a
from
reminder.
the act of writing it down.
No, you're absolutely right. I remember in high school, one of the teachers said that the act of writing a note, it's not so much that you go back and read it.
Yeah.
Just writing it creates the memory. Yeah. And that's very true. And
a keyboard is not as good.
It's not good at all.
Because I was thinking, I'm going to type it out, and others, I don't forget who it was, and they said, George didn't have a computer.
Right.
And others said, no, do what he's doing. Mm-hmm. Write it out by hand.
Yep. Muscle memory.
Yep. And that'll get it into the big muscle between your ears.
Yep.
So that was very good. But what George really was very good at is he would spend hours and hours on the field. He just lived out there.
Yeah. Well, that helps.
Every time I went out on the battlefield on my own, I'd be out here for summers. I would see George's pickup truck parked over at the Lee Monument, and he's out there wandering around with the ticks. Which battery is this? Putting the order of battle onto the battlefield, so you really understand it.
All right, let's see. Mike Lentz says, Jessie, she has ruined rusty scissors for me. What does that mean?
No idea.
Did you do something with rusty scissors that ruined it for Mike Lentz?
Did you have rusty scissors?
I don't know. He says
Did I
this.
tell him the story of the Zabdiel Boylston Adams?
Oh, maybe that's what it. I don't know.
Is that it?
Maybe he'll have to answer that there.
Did he use rusty? Oh, that makes the story even more colorful.
It's got to be rusty scissors.
Let's see here. Well, it's just mostly a conversation between 6 questions and Grant here. And that's Peter Zach says, this has been interesting. Does anybody that's watching live on Patreon at patreon.com/addressing Gettysburg, do any of you have any questions that you want me to ask Ralph or Jessie before we close here? I think this is I hope this is going to be helpful for people who are psyching themselves out as to what this all is, because even for myself, listening to you guys talk about this now, it doesn't seem as daunting as I kind of had built it up in my head.
But make sure it's what you want to do.
Yeah.
I had a pretty good picture. Jessie, Evan, I didn't know that till she was telling us here. Had worked here for years. Have a picture of what this is.
Yeah. Because you're right. It's not just telling the history of the battle. But mostly
you are a tourism employee, not
an ambassador.
You're an employee for yourself because you're a licensee. You work when you want to. I have heard people talk about, well, how much you guys make an hour? Oh no, that doesn't work at all.
Right.
Because you get $70 on a tour, but you're not getting paid while you're waiting for the tour to start.
You're not getting paid doing the research for the tour either.
Well, never mind that.
Right.
But even showing up at the visitor center at 9:00, waiting to see what tour you can go out with next, and you wait there till 11, you're not getting paid for that.
See, a lot of people don't realize when you're an independent contractor or you're a business owner or whatever, you don't get paid by the hour. You get paid.
Right.
When, you get paid differently. It's a different way.
Since I left stacking shelves at the supermarket, I've been a salary employee for my entire life.
Yeah.
So that was, I don't know if that's good or bad, but I didn't really.
It's comfortable.
I didn't punch a clock.
Right.
And you can't look at it that way here because, Jessie should talk about that more because she does more buses and so forth and is trying to survive and not starve to death. I'm just trying to, I don't know what I'm doing with my money.
Nobody knows what they're doing with anything anymore. Well, listen, thank you for doing this, guys. I think it's been helpful, and maybe we'll do some more as we go and get closer to the guide exam. Who knows?
You're never going to broadcast this, are you?
Sure.
Sure
I am.
No, you don't.
No, I've got a lot of editing to do, but I'm going to broadcast it. Wait, let's see here. Yes, it was the Adams story. Mike says, this has been great. Mike says, Grant says, what chances do Ralph and Jessie think Matt has to become a guide? He says, I reckon he can do it. I'll tell you what chances I have. I have a 1 in 500 chance of getting the license.
I wonder how many people are going to take it.
I think you're going to have between 250 and 300. That's what I think.
I think it's definitely going to be over 200.
Oh, yeah. Because you know why? Because they've waited so damn long to take it that people who...
It's cool that it's built up the
Sure.
and it hasn't dropped off.
Yeah.
I was worried about
but you like to think a reality check comes in. There was definitely an element in my exam in 2002. I don't know about yours in 17. People taking it to see if they could pass it.
Yes.
And I think
And then you look at the cost.
Part of the high fee is to discourage that.
So let's talk about that real quick, though, because I'm one of those people. And I'll tell you why I'm one of those people. Because there's no practice exam. There's no real preparation to see, like, if you even have what it takes. And the way to do it is to take the test and fail and then try again later. And so, $250, whatever the fee is going to be. So whatever, I'm saving my pennies. I'm looking between the couch cushions and I'm going to come up with the money. Now, there's people that think that's not fair to do because that's eking someone else out.
My year that I took the test, when I learned that, because I didn't know that, I hadn't been a test in 5 years.
Right.
So in 2002, when I was taking the test, I learned from Mike, who lived out here already, that there are people taking the test for shits and giggles.
Well, I'm not doing it for shits and giggles. When I say I'm taking it just to see, that is the most I can hope for.
Yeah.
If I pass and move on, I will continue until I get a license or I don't.
Yeah.
I will go all the way, but I don't expect to get that far. I don't expect to get to the interview process or the portion of it because I've never scored above a 95 on anything. And so I know that if you're going to have... No, I understand.
It's not that bad now.
Well, but it's going to have to be because they're going to have a lot of people. See, and I don't know. Maybe I'll ask Angie tomorrow when she's in.
Jessie's on the newer range. I was in the old time where it was a written test and then an oral. Now they have an interview review process.
Right.
So,
but you got to pass the written to get there.
But aren't they clearing more people from the written because they're culling people out during the interview? Is that the case?
I don't know. So a lot of these questions Angie should answer.
Yeah, I'm gonna-
we're just
that's
guessing.
true.
Yeah,
and,
these
you
are
know,
all
You're going to
processed.
know within a couple.
And she's listening to the podcast, and we're just getting ourselves
And I'm gonna be
deeper
called into
into trouble.
You're
the
going to lose
office
your
to
license. Yeah, no,
apologize
that's not
for-
the point of this here. But to answer Grant's question, I can tell you what I believe my chances are, and they're very, very slim because it's just I know my.
I think you're kidding yourself because
no.
just doing this podcast, I think you've learned
But
more than you
I
think.
can't see the forest for the trees. I'm too. It's too. There. I don't. First of all, I don't have time to study in an effective way because I'm jumping around from subjects
this,
all the
yeah.
time doing this, and I don't have the time
Yeah.
to devote to studying. So I'm gonna have to wing it and see how I do. I'll tell you what, Fran came up with like a 25 question, not practice quiz, but like just a quiz. And I actually corrected his questions. I said, no, this isn't what you're asking. You're asking this, that. And I did catch a few answers that he had wrong on it. And they were just, simple mistakes. Like it's supposed to be 12, but he accidentally hit 11 instead, whatever. But that doesn't mean I'm going to pass a 200 question or whatever, 150 question quiz
But it's
or
not
test.
passing, it's ranking.
I understand. I'm not, I
And-
never ranked high in anything. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, it's time, damn it.
What time?
It's time for you.
Oh,
to
I
rank. It's
agree.
time
I've
for you
been
to
saying it for 40
get
years.
over the threshold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think this time around,
But I was just going to say it did scroll me up in 2002 to learn there were people taking the test who didn't want to be guides.
yeah, I want to be a guy.
And I'm like, well, thanks. Thanks a lot because now one thing we
but
didn't
that
talk-
doesn't.
yeah.
But hold on though. Let me just push back on that though. Someone, let's say he scores a 98.
Yeah.
All right, but he's like, well, I didn't want to be a guide anyway. Okay. He doesn't. That doesn't bump you out. That actually bumps you up because he's out of the running.
Yeah,
so
if
he's
he,
not
if
going
he
to.
tells them.
No. But they're going to find out because he doesn't show up for the oral. Right. He doesn't go on.
Yeah, by then they've already selected.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying is he gets out of
that's
the way.
There were 120 in my test class, and I looked at it like, I'm never going to be high enough to get it. And
There's no
Yeah.
such thing as being bumped up though after the written is over.
Yeah, but what I'm
you're
saying
not
is if-
ranked after that.
yeah.
No, but what I'm saying is like if they're looking for I don't know how this works, but this is my idea of how it used to work at least. If they're looking for people who scored 95 or above, and there's 6 people that did it, and this guy is one of them, right? And then 3 people wash out or whatever. Well, don't they go then down to below 95?
No.
So then nobody gets a license that year.
You get ranked for the oral exam, and that's the end.
So there's
Thank you. See you in 2 or 4 or 5 years.
All those people above a 95, let's say, fail their oral exam, no one gets a license that year. They don't go down to
Well,
people 90 to 95.
That's
In
never
theory,
happened. So
that-
maybe they'd have
yeah.
to if that happened, but that's never happened.
It's always been a calculation up until now, recently, I should say. The earlier time under Clyde Bell, the calculation wasn't again. And
It's
she
different
should be
now.
doing
Yeah,
this.
yeah, and she will. We're doing that tomorrow.
We rank half as many people. We rank twice as many people as we think we need.
Okay.
If our goal is 12 guides, we rank 20.
Okay.
And in my case, it was 21 because there are a bunch of ties.
Right.
And actually, I don't know what the empirical number was that they had in mind, but
Why
they
are you wearing
But they
ties?
ended up with 12.
Okay.
Well, 2 people have ties. And
Oh,
the
I thought you were
It was
wearing.
other Ralph.
I thought you meant
Right.
neckties, Ralph.
No.
I'm sorry. It was
They
other
were-
Ralph.
In my class, there were a bunch of guys who had the exact same score.
Yeah. I was making a dad joke. I get it.
Today, they have this interview process
Yeah.
that screens out, how shall we phrase it delicately,
The
nuts.
The nuts and the dorks
Right.
and the boring
and
people.
the people who shouldn't be in a tour
Why
guide.
should you
Yeah.
like people are listening that have been booted out of the
Oh, that's another
interview process.
Not a bad.
Well,
point
they
there.
must know why.
they're not.
They don't tell them. Sorry, you're too boring.
Yeah, they don't say it
Not
that way.
always the case.
Oh.
And plus, in Pennsylvania, it's so easy to buy a gun. So, yeah, edit this part out, would you? Yeah, thank you. Go backwards and take that part out.
Yeah.
But the idea was to place less pressure on the oral exam because it used to be written exam. We went right to the oral.
Right,
now,
right.
as Jessie could explain more because she did it, there's an interview process where they ask you questions to test if this is somebody they want. And because of that, they use that to wash people out. They accept more from the written exam.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's
So
more
personality
ranked
matters.
because they're cleaning it out. Well, I mean, I didn't do the interview process.
Right.
So is it personality?
The theory behind it is like, why put this person through all the stress of getting ready for the car tour when you could tell already that they wouldn't be ready for the car tour? You know, in the time. It's very hard to flip-flop from memorizing everything that you've had to put into your brain from the test and then realize they don't want to hear about brigade names at all, you know, in your 2-hour guide exam. Right. You're like, wait, nothing? You know, and it's very hard to flip back from that in that short, it seems like it's a long time, but it's not.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get ready for that second phase quickly and just flip around.
Yeah.
So,
what do you think? Like,
I think the biggest thing that stood out in the interview, and then we have this, we practice giving little bits of tours. So, like, you'll go on a bus with all the other candidates and you'll get out. And we had to give, like, a 5-minute blurb to force us to hone down one spot on the battlefield into 5 minutes.
Okay.
And you could go over 5. You could make mistakes. But what they're really looking for is, can you look back on what you just did and criticize yourself? You know, can you realize, you know, what you did wrong? And if you can't realize that, then you're not really ready for what they're trying to do.
That's cool. That's a good idea.
It was incredibly stressful because you know that you could get cut from that phase. So, like, you're just sweating bullets with everything you do. It's incredibly stressful. Yeah. And I really hope, I don't know what they're going to do this time, but it was really tough to have that graded because it was past the interview. So the interview happened. And then we had these mini tours, which in the past were meant to get you like some advice from the guides on how to get ready for the car tour.
Right. Yeah.
But they were finding when they were doing those, they could tell people couldn't really get a sense of how they were coming off, you know, and couldn't take criticism.
But would you say, though, that a personality does matter in this? Like, there a lot of people know a lot, but don't know how to tell a story. I have a couple people in mind that I know that know a lot.
And they just don't realize they're telling too much.
And that, but they can't string it together in a cohesive and understandable narrative, and it just confuses everyone. But people like to listen to them talk, but it's more of a curiosity or a sporting event type of a thing. It's like, wow, how do you remember all that stuff? But nobody knows what the hell you just said. Nobody comes away with a firmer understanding of things. So do you think personality and being able to read people is a important thing? And obviously, if you don't have this ability, you can't learn it by December. But, like, do you think that that's something that will help you if you have that in your personality?
Well, sure.
I think you can. I think you can learn it. After I got ranked for my written exam, I gave 12 tours to 20 or more guinea pigs.
Yeah. Okay.
They all knew what I was doing. I was trying to I wanted to become a battlefield guide. I was going to have to do an oral exam, and I want to practice on you.
Yeah.
It was indispensable.
But you have a personality,
the first
Ralph.
tour I gave was a frickin' disaster.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But that's not what I'm asking, though.
Yeah.
You have a personality. The way you are now isn't because you got comfortable in your skin from being a guide. You were always this
childhood and excessive drugs in college.
Right.
And there's just a big half piece of my brain is missing. Right. So
exactly. So you were already this way.
Yeah, I'm already this way.
So that's what I'm saying is once you get past the knowledge and the discomfort with doing a tour. Yeah. And you get more comfortable, you come out again and you're able to talk with people. Same with you, I'm going to say. I mean, I can just say, Jessie, from when you started coming on this show, when you were nervous and your mouth was all dry and you taking these deep breaths and everything. And I still never, because I want people to see how you are now.
I want to see
it was the first one she was on. I forget what it was. Do you remember? Doesn't matter. No. We can go find it.
It was just questions, like they were just asking.
Oh, that's what it was. When I used to do Ask a Guides with just
whatever
random.
You
yeah, it was random questions. Anyway, so but you've come a long way.
Well, and I had to take the exam twice because of that. I was a person who was cut, because I wasn't ready for that last step.
Right.
And it was so frustrating to know that I had to do it all over again, but and that I had to give the audio tour on the segways for another 2 years. That was the hardest part.
Yeah.
And tell people, I can't talk about the battle. I'm not a guide yet.
Right.
Something I've also learned, I used to help teach graduate school in communications for a friend of mine. He had a contract to do seminars for the state employees through Rutgers, and he needed instructors. And I learned something that a lot of people who are good public speakers don't appreciate. The ability to stand up in front. I mean, we can do it. We can go into the cemetery as a group of 30 people. We can start a tour. James McPherson wrote a book, Hallowed Ground, which people criticize, but he's a nice man. I know him. And he said in his book, you can drop me anywhere on the Gettysburg battlefield in the middle of the night, and in 2 hours, I can figure out, in 2 minutes, I'll figure out where I am.
Right.
And I said, and that's the difference with a battlefield guide. You could drop a battlefield guide in the middle of the battlefield, in the middle of the dark, and in 2 minutes, he's going to start a 2-hour tour. And we don't appreciate that there's people who can't do that.
Right.
And I learned that in this graduate class where I was teaching public speaking. These were leadership programs for people who wanted to advance in the state government. And they had to stand up at the podium to give a 10-minute speech on a project they were supervising, and they'd be in a cold sweat.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you okay? Did you eat something for lunch?
But it doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means like you're going to learn something about yourself. You can't know, like you're saying, I want to be a guide, but you're not really going to know how you feel until you're in that process and you've actually made it past the written exam.
Sure.
And you start thinking about yourself. And like if they tell you, we're cutting you at the interview phase, you can just boot and rally with everyone else and get back on the train the next year, or you can say, maybe this isn't really what I want to do.
Right.
Maybe there's a niche for what I want to do. And a lot of people have found that. You can still write books about your favorite subject. You can still give tours outside the park.
You could even write a book on how to study for the exam, having failed it.
But when I went into that class program, I had the misapprehension that you could teach this, that you could teach people through experience and practice, that they'll be better at the end of the class. What I learned was, you can get them some skills, but basically, if they suck at it, they suck at it. And you're not going to, they're going to turn, they stand in, and you can see them when they stand in front of the classroom, they look like someone's in the back with a gun about to shoot them. Yeah. They turn pale, they turn white, their notes are...
Yeah.
And
they rely too much on the notes.
And they can pass the written exam.
That's what I'm saying. Is there's a difference between a test taker and
an element like of what Jessie says, an element of self-knowledge.
And I almost feel like if the park is really thinking about this, like they have to realize what year we're in, what the world is like, and if you want to engage the public and you want the public to keep coming, you kind of have to rely on personality, because these people now they have such ADD and they need to, because of the phone, and they need to be entertained every minute of the day. And that takes energy. And if you are a bookish person, you're not going to have the energy to do it. It's going to be exhausting for you to do it. Whereas if you're a goofball like you or me, like we act like goofballs no matter who's in the room. If our dog's there, I'll talk to the dog and I'll make a voice for her to talk back to me, and I don't care.
Oh, you did that too?
I did that too. Yeah, because exactly right. Because you and me are both nitwits. Yeah. So now I'm not. But still, obviously you have to know what you're talking about, right? Yeah. But you have to be able to engage.
You have to know the story.
You have to know the story, and you have to be able to look at a person and connect with them, and a lot of people cannot do that.
Right, and I learned in that class that I helped teach that not everybody can learn this.
No.
And so self-awareness, there are people who can't be guides because they're going to get in the car and they're just not going to be able to pull it off. It is an entertainment. You are an entertainer. And the
idol of your age.
And the battlefield is your stage.
Yeah. No, it's true.
Which can seem inappropriate to a lot of people and offensive to people. But
that's right.
You have to bait people into it so they become the people that care. You just can't make something there that's not there in the first place at all.
Think of your favorite teacher. It was probably the most entertaining teacher in the school.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a reason for that. Like, that's how you get through to people, is you entertain them. And by accident, they learn. And so that's, you do have to be entertaining, and I know that for a fact. Anyway, all right, I think we've answered plenty of questions. We've probably raised some more. So if you have any questions that you might want, if you want a part 2 of this or something.
The park is going to get a copy of this, and they're going to call us when 0 people register for the exam because they're all terrified now.
Well, good. That's more room for us.
I got to be Steve Martin. I can't do that. And
no, you don't need to know the banjo. No props, nothing like that. No.
But if you're passionate about what you're saying, no matter how you're talking about it, it's there's something to be said. People notice that you enjoy what you do.
They can feel it. And also, don't listen to a word I said unless they said yes. in response to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a guide. I just know a lot.
I remember that
of
when I
guides.
was out here planning to become a guide, watching. There was this one group, 67 people, and Charlie Fennell had them over in the 1st Minnesota, and he's talking about that wayside sign wasn't even up there, and it's just all him. And he's telling them how this regiment charged down the slope, and they knew, all of them, looking at it like, oh man, we're going to get massacred. But they went and did it. And how you reach down into your soul. And these people were crying.
Of course.
And they're walking back to the car, and Charlie's behind him, and he spots me and just gives me this biggest, most evil grin. Like, because that's the gold standard. He got them all crying.
He got them, right.
And he was, there we go.
My buddy Bob Steenstra, he's done many tours for Gettysburg, and I used to go out on them all the time, and he would almost always, by Pickett's charge, have at least the mother of the family crying. And I would always like, Bob, man, like, you always get them crying. And he's like, it's all shucks and everything like that. But like, you have to. This sounds really corny, but I think you have to have a bit of a heart to do this, because it's such a horrible story.
You do have to care about it.
You do, and not just it, but people, and the fact that you're not talking about cold numbers on a page. Those numbers are people. Each one of those 1,500 or 230 or whatever you're talking about is a man who has a life and a family and dreams and desires, and they're being possibly snuffed out. And if he survives the war, he probably is never going to be himself again. The man that enlisted is dead, and whatever's walking around after the war is something else. And that's sad. That's tragic. And if you don't understand that, and you don't know how to convey that to people, and at least try to get them to cry.
It's kind of a process of bringing people up and down over and over again.
It's
like,
it's
I'm going to hit you with
storytelling.
this kind of heavy stuff, and then I'll try to find a story to bring you back up out of it.
No, it's like it's Hitchcockian.
But I'm only joking, around in certain spots because we have to. Like, we talk about death every day, and people that are on our tours have gone through very similar experiences as to what we're talking about.
And they have messed
whether they
up
were a trauma nurse or something like that, or a Vietnam veteran or something, and I'm just a a person trying to convey what war is like to people that have been through it a lot of the time.
Yeah, I remember I read something about how Hitchcock was the master of suspense because he would bring the suspense up, and then the next scene would be a joke. And it let you down and relax, and then you build up again, and then another joke. Not that you have to have jokes in anything, but like you have to know how to build drama and some kind of suspense or something, and that's just storytelling, regardless of the story you're telling. You tell a story about something that happened to you on the way to work today. Like, you better have some ups and downs. And if it's a recounting of every detail of every song that was on the damn radio and what station you were listening to, who cares?
And to make matters worse, you have to do it by reading to people in the car.
Yeah.
What are they going to think is cool?
Right.
And what story do they not want to hear? Sometimes I'm for 20 minutes in front of the Lutheran Seminary talking about Confederate and Union surgeons working together.
Right.
At that corner. And sometimes I'm driving past the old dorm without even mentioning it. It's just I don't know what they're ready. I don't think they don't want to talk about 800 wounded men in this building bleeding out.
Yeah.
And you got a nurse. Oh my God! In 20 minutes, she wants to be inside. Sure. Are they all gone? There's just a diorama. They're just mannequins. So there's that too. Yeah, you're not only engaging the person, but you got to engage the person.
Right.
And that can't be easy on a bus. That when you're on a bus, how do you do it? Particularly in a double decker when they're all up there.
You can't do that up there. You can't even see them, right? I mean, you can't see them on the top of the double decker.
Most of the time, they're up on top, and I just point by myself on the bottom. I still point out the window anyway if nobody's down there with me.
Well, I think the biggest piece of advice and another example of why you shouldn't be listening to me throughout this whole thing is that you need to know when to end it, and I tried to end this 20 minutes ago, but I keep getting suckered in. So
I might eat dinner tonight.
Yeah, I'm starving. Everybody's starving. It's dinner time. I'm sure you guys are hungry back at home. Thank you, everybody, for watching on Patreon. Thanks for your continued support. And those of you watching elsewhere, thank you for watching. I hope it does help if you are studying to be a guide and, whatever.
Don't give up.
Yeah, I guess don't give up.
Help me.
Or give up. I don't know.
Yeah, and if you don't really want to be a guide, let somebody else do it.
There you go. Yeah. And
Don't take it just for fun.
But if you have more questions for Ralph and Jessie, shoot me an email, matt@addressinggettysburg.com, and I will get it over to them, and they can take it from there and whatnot. Otherwise, thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye. All right. Thanks, everybody.
I didn't think we could do that. But all right, once you get us going, Matt, you're the man.
Our hearts so stout have got us famed, forsooth 'tis known from whence we came. Wherever we go, they dread the name of Gary Owen in glory. Instead of spa, we'll drink down ale and pay the reckoning on the nail. No man for debt shall go to jail from Gary Owen in glory. Instead of spa, we'll drink down